Now,
All right, so give us about 1 minute, guys, and we'll get going.
Okay.
well, what is the green button up in the left-hand corner that was up there a minute ago?
Meeting information.
Okay. I thought that was recording, but
The red button beside it says recording.
yeah, that's, now there's a green one with a check in there next to the recording. Okay.
All right.
I didn't see the check a while ago. I just saw what I thought was a green button and I thought that was recording. I was mistaken. I had to look outside. I did not realize it was still daylight out there, but looking into the meeting, it looks like it is.
Huh. Yeah, the window behind you.
Yeah,
Yep.
one in the room, the meeting room.
All right, testing. Can you hear me on Zoom? All
Yes.
right, we're recording. All right, y'all. I apologize for the delay. Apparently, today is the day that Zoom is starting to roll out two-factor authentication. And around 6:20, I sent a code and it did not go through until 6:45, and it said that it had expired. So it took us a minute to get that straightened out, but with the 10 emails that I just got a few minutes ago, one of those codes worked, and we should be good. So again, I appreciate everybody's patience. And again, welcome to the September 13th meeting of Delta Amateur Radio Club's membership meeting. If you are on Zoom, please hit mute until it's your turn to get ready to speak, so that way we limit interference. And then if you are in person, we've got the sign-in sheets in the back. It is a little hot, I know, but it's not too bad with all the fans and everything. So thank you, Scott, for getting those up and running for us, and Mike as well. And then we've got some ice down drinks and snacks over there. So feel free to get something if you have not yet. All right, so first off, for the secretary's minutes and the treasurer's reports.
I'll make a motion.
All right, so Pam Hilliard has made the motion to accept the secretary's minutes and treasurer's report as published in Sparks. And Barry McDonald has seconded the motion. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed, say no or raise your hand. Okay, that motion unanimously passes. We've got a couple of announcements to make. We'll start with the in-person first, and then we'll switch over to the Zoom. So right now, we have announced the 2023 Board of Directors Nominating Committee. So that nominating committee, John Ronners, and for BVH, he's currently serving as our vice president, and he's going to serve as chairman of that committee. Then everybody else we've got, and it's just a 3-person committee, but the other 2 are non-board members. So we've got Harry Hayes and then Harry Blackwell, who are serving on that committee. Technically, every position on the board of directors for next year is open. So whether from president all the way through secretary, treasurer, computer trustee, everything technically is open. But I do know that we've had some interest expressed by some of the members to serve another year. If you are interested in serving as secretary or director of programs, we will for sure have an opening in that. Next month, the nominating committee will make their recommendations for those nominations at a membership meeting, and we will officially vote on that at the November meeting with, and then we try, and it seems to have worked real well in the past, when the nominating committee can make a recommendation. It kind of makes the election process go a little bit more smoothly. But we can technically take nominations on the floor in November, so if you get a wild hair that you want to serve as president, have at it, you know, get somebody to nominate you, but in all seriousness, so it's certainly an honor to serve on the board, and if you've got any time at all and you think you can spare the time and certainly bring something to it, I know we certainly appreciate the help, and it helps us to build this organization, so that way we can continue to offer the services and activities that we do down the road. So used to, we would come up here twice a month at least, during the club meetings and the board member meetings. Since it's a small group of us, we have been doing the board member meetings on Zoom only. Because I know we've got one who lives in another county, not actually one, well, at least one who lives in another county, and so I know I have to come up here twice a month late at night at Bell. So that's something to keep in mind as well if you're worried about coming here twice. To serve on the board of directors, you have to attend at least half of the meetings, membership meetings within the past year. So if you've been to at least 4 or 5 meetings, because this one would count, and then the next month's would count as well, then you should be eligible. And then as far as everything else, it's just continuing to go enough to the meetings. And of course, we'd rather you be as active as you can. But any questions?
Is there a list of positions?
We've got he asked, is there a list of the descriptions and the positions of what they entail? I know that we've got that full list in our constitution and bylaws. Do we have that up on the web? It's not up on the website right now, but I can get it for you. And we can work on getting that up as well, but, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, director of programs, director of publication, director of meetings, special events, and we've got our public information officer that's appointed, and then, well, I guess the repeater trustee is as well, but Barry's been working so hard, he might as well have been voted in at this point. So it's a handful. Another one that we can appoint is historian, and then we also have the club council position. Any other questions about the board of directors? Anybody that we know right now who might be interested? Okay. Well, feel free to, I've got the email address, the contact information in Sparks under the announcements for the 3 on that nominating committee if you are interested. If you're here in person tonight, remind me as well so that we can get that to you, or we can answer any questions about what each position entails and all that. And if you're interested in a position, but you're not sure if you have experience, don't let that deter you. I had not been a member. I was a member for less than a year when I first started as secretary. It's certainly a hard job, and Carolyn has done a phenomenal job with it. But I mean, there's a lot more positions than you might think. That you don't have to know everybody. You don't have to know everything about ham radio. Serve on the board. These positions are help. These are the positions that can help this club keep it going. First and foremost, we can't be here without the members. With you guys joining us in Zoom, the meetings, activities, but these are the ones that we help make sure things are paid, insurance is paid for the equipment, activities are planned, and we get in there and do all the nitty-gritty work behind the scenes. Great question. All right, there is a CPR class that we are going to have this Saturday at 8 a.m. All the details are going to be at Sparks. So last month we mentioned that we are going to be working with the Germantown Fire Department to have this class, and I think between their time schedule and ours, Fred Miller and I decided to try to work with the Shelby County Sheriff's Office instead for just this class. So, we have teamed up with the Shelby County Sheriff's Office, which means we also are going to be able to offer this class to the American Heart Association. So if you have not gotten your certification in, CPR, AED for adults, you can take it this Saturday, with Neshoba, Delta Club, we're working together on this, it's a 2.5-hour class. You take it for $4. So I don't know when the last time, you paid for a CPR class was, but it certainly is not as cheap as $4. I mean, some of you may get it cheaper, but it's free through work, but if you're going out there on your own, you can't get it for as little as $4. We had to charge $4 because of the workbook. It did require the use of the workbook, but again, $4, you really can't get much cheaper than that. What that $4 includes is going to also include a certificate of completion from Shelby County Sheriff's Office. And if you would like to get the American Heart Association certification card, and a picture of that is in Sparks for that announcement, then that's going to be an extra $18 because of the way that they do that process. So it'll be a little more, again, $22 is still far cheaper than through a Red Cross somewhere else that certification card, and it's good for 2 years. So if you're like me, you've already got your certification and you don't want to, and you'd like to join us, you're welcome to do that as well. And that way you can renew it. What we're going to do, we're going to be at the Shelby County Sheriff's Office training facility for 2.5 hours for that class. They do require business or business casual attire, so we would have to wear something other than shorts or jeans, some slacks, or something like that. But a club polo will work for like for your club polo, not for a shirt or something like that. One thing, since Fred Miller with Neshoba works with the emergency services group over there, he has lined up afterwards a tour of the Shelby County Sheriff's Office Emergency Services, the volunteer division of that facility. So after the class, we're going to go around and take a tour of that facility. I think he said we'll get to talk to some of the others, and it might depend on who's available at that time, but that might be some of the reserve deputies talk about that program. It might be somebody to talk about the K9 program. So some kind of different aspects of what all goes on behind the scenes, and then afterwards we might try to, if anybody's interested, we can grab lunch for that. So if you're here tonight, you can see me before you leave. If you are on Zoom and you're interested, be sure to, if you can email me at healing84contract@ARRL.net. And I think I got that email as far as email me and let me know. What you'll do is that you pay, if you're here tonight and we don't pay $4 for the class, we can do that. And then if not, you can bring that money and pay Saturday coming. But we would need to know who else can put it on, so that way we can make sure that we don't go over on the class. Any questions about that class? The Blood City Blues bike ride is next month on the 8th of October. It's probably going to be a nearly all-day thing from Saturday, I think typically around 6:37 in the morning. So probably around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I know we'll need some folks for to ride around and do the drive. There's vehicles, there's tags, there's the time here. We'll need some folks to operate at the station. So I'm sure if this week I'll be coming out and already gone through before, I'll be reaching out to see about getting you helping in this time. And if you do, then I encourage you to we do hear you up on the experience. Questions about what we believe? On Gary. So that way.
Yeah, I guess, referring to different site. It is, it's one of the perfect. I mean, absolutely. So, we still don't know why this happened. Anyway, what we're trying to do right now, remember those, which the next just we need to get the confidence to them. That's not what we're going to do. Anyway, the idea of this happening to
I can't understand a word Barry's saying.
Mary Jean, get him closer to the computer.
Everything is perfect right now. I mean, couldn't ask more than barely leaving any. Perfect.
All right, well, thank you, Gary. So just in case, it faded out a little, pretty much, it sounds like it's doing well right now. We're not sure why it was not working. So please use the A2 repeater as much as you can. Does anybody have any questions for Gary about that?
Mary Jean? Mary Jean?
Yeah.
We could not understand Barry at all.
Okay.
Joe, you might suggest that he talk again in front of the computer.
Yeah.
Okay, so the A2 repeater is working right now. We do not know why it was not working, and we are not going to switch over yet. For the meantime, please use the A2 repeater as much as you can in your free time so we can test it out.
But the nightly net will be on the 443-700.
Okay, and the nightly net for now will still be on the 443.700 frequency. Okay. Joe, do you want to go on, and I'm sure you've got some updates for us. You want to go on and give us some,
Yeah. On training, we had 4 people test, 4 people passed. There is a new thing out since Huntsville that a person that gets their technician license can apply to QRZ and get it's called an Explorer QRZ1 handheld 2-meter 440 radio. At least 3 of the 4 students have gotten theirs. I have not physically handled it. It seems to be pretty decent from what I've heard on the internet. So that is good that we were able to, those were able to, it came out at Huntsville and they had tested right before. So it was perfect timing for them. And the 4th person, I think, probably went ahead and got it. He already had a DMR radio. And I said, there's no sense in not getting a free one. You never have enough handhelds. So he possibly has gotten it, but I don't know. The 3 of the students did not test for one reason. one had, no, they had business situations that, that kept them from testing. Hopefully they will get their license, soon. Training, I'm planning a general class, license class starting November the 7th through December, I think the 12th on 6 Monday nights from 6:15 to 9:30. I will get it up on ARRL soon and start taking reservations for that class, for the general class license class. As a part of the technician class, the last night I had told them that after they had passed their exam, we were going to institute, if they signed up for ARRL, the $49 ARRL membership, we sent it in, and the club is to get $15 per new member. So that's in the works. We have not, we sent it in on the, I'm not sure exactly, I can't remember now exactly the date that sent it in, but it was like the 22nd or 23rd of August. Have not seen a check from ARRL come yet. I'm going to start inquiring soon about it, because you send the full amount of money in to ARRL, and then at the end of the month, they're supposed to send you your commission. For renewals, it is a $5 commission that we get. So the board talked about doing it, and I think we will start doing it. We've got to get it ironed out as to who's going to do it for renewals and all of that. That is all that I have, I believe, Mary Jean.
All right, thank you, Joe. Does anybody have any questions for Joe about training or renewal, ARRL renewals that he did for the class? Okay. All right, so one other thing I wanted to check with you, we received an email, and I've talked to a few of you about this, but we've had a few people inquire about when we are going to do another club polo order. And I'm not going to take up any information tonight because I'm not ready to do that, but I just wanted to gauge the interest. So the club polos, this last year, what we did is I went through Mid-South Solutions, and they were under, I think they were under $30 for the polos. I'd have to go back and check, but they weren't too bad. The brand is Cornerstone. And then what it is that they did the, and I'm going to put the mic down for a second, but we did the kind of the royal blue, and it's got the Delta Amateur Radio Club logo on one side, and then your name and call sign on the other. And the thing with these polos, it's got the pin pocket on the side sleeves, so that way you can have a pin in your sleeve. It's also got mic clip pockets on the side, the front as well. So again, the prices may have changed significantly since last year. There's honestly no way to know until I reach out and start that. But if you were even just interested, so not necessarily committing to it, but if you're interested at all in ordering a club polo, will you raise your hand? We can see it. Okay. All right. Well, we've got several folks interested. So in that case, I'll reach out to Mid-South Solutions and see if I can get some information from them, and I'll try to have that by next month and go from there. So it was a pretty quick turnaround. It's just a matter of how long we want to have that. So I'll find out and let you guys know. Just a reminder for the YLs, I don't see Linda on here. We are still technically on a break with the YLNet right now. She's handed over the reins and I'm gonna be scheduling that for the time being. And I know, I'm personally very thankful for all that she did for the YLNet. Hopefully we'll switch back over once we switch back over with the 8.2 on having the YLNet on Saturday nights at 8:45 again. But I'm also working to see if there's interest in having it, if we have any issues, to be able to call it on a frequency. So for the time being, we are still on a break, but I would say stay tuned and we'll announce it as we get closer to that. All right, is there any other? Okay, so the November membership meeting falls on election night. This facility, the Fellowship Hall, will be used on election night for polling. We will not be able to meet in this facility. So the board, we talked about this, just because one of two things will have to happen. We're either going to have to find a different location to meet in person, or we will have to go Zoom only. So we are going to try to do what we've done before, Zoom and COVID, to see if we can find another in-person location to meet on the night of election night. We would like to have this information to know what we're going to do by October. So if you are a member of a church in this area, or another, if you're a member of a business or anything, anywhere that might be able to host and willing to let us have a meeting on that night at 7 p.m. I would say probably big enough to hold, I mean, it's a lighter crowd tonight, but big enough to hold probably 40 people, give or take. Please let one of the board members know before the October board meeting, so that way we can decide. So, and we don't have to discuss any locations now, but just something to think about. If you know of anywhere we might meet, please let us know, because we will not be able to meet here in November. And we'd rather try to have the in-person option. So please let us know. Does anybody else have any announcements or anything that we need to discuss before we can take a break? Okay. All right, well, we're going to take a break. After the break, we're going to talk about how to get into CW. So we'll take about we'll take a 10-minute break. So we'll re-adjourn at 7:45 p.m. and we'll get started with the program. All right. Well, if anybody in person can make their way back to the seats, Carolyn, are you ready to cue that up in a moment?
Sure am.
All right. So
Let me know if
real quick-
there's any, let me know if there's any feedback and I'll turn my microphone off.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
So
this-
go ahead, Carolyn.
Okay, well, this is a presentation of the Long Island CW Club made to K1 USN Radio Club on Zoom. Can you see it?
We can.
Okay.
Yes.
I gotta tell you people about this Long Island CW Club. These guys are going around the clock. I don't know how we're able to get them to slow down to come here and do a little presentation here for us. But in order to pay them back, what we're gonna do is we're gonna record it. And Marty does a great job with recording it and editing out all of the goofy stuff we say in the beginning and the end or whatever. And we'll end up posting the video up on our K1 USN YouTube page, and hopefully then we'll spread the word about it. So hopefully other people will get a chance to see this and hear about, learn about. I want to learn more about all the
Right.
stuff.
Pause it for
And they
just-
have an excellent web page. So that's the homework.
All right, so, real quick, for those of you who are interested in learning CW, I know a few of you already do, there's different routes that you can go. One thing over and over again, I've heard recently from different members who have recently started trying to learn CW is that they've used this, club, they joined, something called the Long Island CW Club as a way to kind of go in and start from the basics and learn CW or Morse code for those of you who don't know what CW is. And so I know in the past we've done Ham 101 where I think it was Ray AA4 UK had a program that you can put on your computer. There's you can do it the old fashioned way where you sit there and kind of listen to stuff and then repeat it at home on your own with YouTube videos. But we've had quite a few people and Carolyn had this video that she had link to it. And so what this does, it's going to go in and kind of tell you a little bit about how to get into CW. You don't have to go through Long Island CW Club, but we've had several members who have talked about how successful they felt like it was when they followed the guidelines that they presented. So that's what this is. So we're going to watch a video for a little bit that they came out with of kind of how to get into CW and go from there. Thank you, Carolyn. I think it's
No audio.
Phone a few times, but this is the first time we've seen each other. And but that means that I know him more than I know Jim. So I'm going to let him do the introduction to Jim, and then you guys can kick it off. So with that, we want to welcome Howard and Jim from the Long Island CW Club here to the K1USN Radio Club Zoom session. You guys take it away, and I will now mute so you don't have to listen to me.
Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction, Pi, and my pleasure to see you live here. We've had a couple of very interesting phone calls over the past couple of weeks. Our pleasure to present to the club. I'm Howard WB2UZE, and Jim W6JIM is my partner in crime for these presentations all the time. And before we get started, even before I introduce Jim, I want to congratulate the K1USN Club on everything you're doing to promote CW. I think the slow speed sprint, the SST, is a fantastic tool, and I'm delighted every time I scan the band and see all the activity that you've created. As a matter of fact, last Sunday night, I parked myself down as a run station at 12 or 13 words a minute, Pi, and contacted 10 members from our club and a few others that I didn't know, and it was very nice. So I really want to congratulate you on a fantastic contribution to CW. With that, Jim, why don't you say hello to the group here?
Hi, I'm Jim, W6JIM, and as I said earlier, I'm on the West Coast. Haven't been to Long Island, but I am a member of the Long Island CW Club. In fact, I've been a member for almost 2 years now, and I've been an instructor for about 3/4 of that time, more than half of that time. I've taught. I was just counting, Howard, how many people I've graduated through my basic course, and it's probably over 200 people now that have gone through all my classes, and including my QSO classes and things. So we're happy to be here to talk to you today, and we're excited to. We know we're talking to. It's a different audience than we're used to, right, Howard?
Well, this is probably more of a CW audience than we usually get, which is great. And you know, Jim, that's a marvelous fact. 200 people that you've put through your own classes. That Jim teaches a few classes a week. He teaches beginners 1 and 2, and also a class we call Demystifying the QSO. Part of our program tries to get people on the air as quick as possibly, and the best way to do that is to break down some of the fears, but we'll talk about that now. And Jim, I suppose we should bring up the PowerPoint and get going here. Okay, so our motto is to learn and have fun with Morse code. You know, if you're not having fun, there's plenty of other distractions that will take your attention. I mean, if you look at Netflix today, they have a show of every topic for everybody. It's endless. So if you're not having fun doing Morse code, there are plenty of things that you could be doing outside of the shack and with the family. So the key point is to enjoy what you're doing. So having said that, what's the attraction of CW in today's high-tech world? Why would anybody want to learn CW? Well, you know, CW is a beautiful vintage mode. It's still relevant today as far as its ease of operation. You can use CW with much less power and compromised antennas than you need for sideband and other modes and still get out very well. And because of that, people like CW for the resurgence in SOTA and POTA, Parks on the Air, Summits on the Air, which is a great aspect of ham radio because it's bringing in a lot of young people. Now, we all know if you're going to go up on a mountain, it's a lot easier to drag along a CW rig, which is not going to be as heavy as a sideband rig. So a lot of these people need CW because it's just lighter, and not a lot of people want to go up on the top of a SOTA mountain like WG0OAT, the GOAT. We actually had him speak to our club, and he goes up to the mountain with 2 pack goats, his pet goats. It was an amazing story, but we don't all have that luxury. Now, FT8. Why would anybody want to do CW when there's FT8? Well, FT8's a wonderful mode. It's a fantastic science behind it, but the computer is really doing all the work. In CW, the computer is your brain. And we have in our club file that CW is very good for creating white matter pathways in the brain and something they call plasticity. So certainly for people getting on in age, like many of us, CW has been proven in some studies to be good for mental capacity. Okay, Jim. Why don't you take this one, Jim?
Sure. Well, in our program, we teach if you come into the club without knowing any characters at all, we break it into 2 classes. The first 20 in Basic 1 and the second 20 characters in Basic 2. And the course that we teach takes about 5 weeks per course. We teach about 4 characters per week. Our method, we use the Koch method along with the Farnsworth method in that we're introducing characters as they're introduced in G4FON, and G4FON uses the Koch method to pick that order. And then we're playing the characters for the students at 20 word per minute character speed with about 5 word per minute spacing whenever we give them drills and things. So they have plenty of time to identify the character, but at the same time, we're not playing it so slow that they're counting the dits and the das. Hopefully our goal is to have them learn the characters as a sound, not by counting or trying to visualize it. And then, of course, we try to get them on the air as fast as possible. Even before they learn all the characters, we get them on the air, and we help them make a QSO. Kind of a quick exchange, and with your club is an example of where we like to get them to start. Recently, anyway, since you guys have been having your thing, and so we tell them that, you know, in our experience has been, if they put in the time and they're doing at least 15, 20 minutes of practice a day, and more if they can, but we don't want them to burn out, of course, that we get them on the air making QSOs in no time. Howard?
That's right, Jim. We strive to get our students on the air within 3 or 4 months of learning, and we try and tell them that they shouldn't become professional students of learning CW on their computers. Okay, Jim. All right, so this is a big question. What do you use to learn a straight key or a keyer? Well, we like our students to use a straight key up to about proficiency at 18 words a minute. And why? Because we feel that when your brain is doing the work, and your brain then has to tell your arm and your fingers that they got to do this dash and this dot, there's a better connection with the code than using a machine such as a keyer. Now, if you put this question out on QRZ.com or one of the other forums, you'd get 5,000 different opinions of what's right, and what's wrong. The fact that we like our students to use the straight key is based now on about 3 years of classes. But are we cast in stone if somebody wants to do it the other way? No, it's up to you in the end. This is our advice. And in some cases, we'll recommend the keyer if somebody has arthritis or some carpal tunnel or something else that would maybe make pounding brass a little bit difficult. But that's basically the way we feel, and especially with a bug, which is a complicated but a very beautiful instrument to use. Leave that for when you get proficient. There's always going to be time to use those sophisticated keys. Why don't you
Right.
take this, Jim?
I'll take this because this was my specialty. This was my problem. I started it in ham radio in 1996 when I first became a ham, and used CW for a good my first 8 or 10 years until I went into hiatus, like a lot of us do. My job just got too busy, and I took about 13 years off. And I found that when I came back into the hobby after I retired from the military, and I finally found some time to, I knew I was going to come back to it eventually. I finally came back to it. The characters came back to me, and I was okay with those. I mean, I needed to improve those, of course, but what scared me is I had completely forgotten the protocol, and I knew that there was something I was supposed to do, and I knew there was a way to start and a way to end, and something he did in the middle, and I just couldn't remember those things. And being a military person for over 30 years, I didn't want to, I'm used to not making, we're not allowed to make mistakes, so we don't like to make mistakes. So I can tell you that we understand it in the club. We found that this is really all over the club, and people learning the code, but then they don't learn how to use. They're afraid to get on the air and use it. So the couple ways we combat it. First is our classes. We get to be really friendly and get to know each other in class. We joke around. We keep it a really fun is the key word. We try to keep it fun, and so that when people start to make mistakes and send and things, that they're not embarrassed. And that's the key, is not being embarrassed around the people that we're learning with. Now we can start moving forward. And also the second thing is we teach the protocol, and we by knowing what the protocol is, the QSO protocol, now you know what's coming. Now you know what you're supposed to send. All the mysterious part of it, or the things you didn't know, are taken away, and now you know, and that takes away a lot of the fear in itself. Howard?
Well, that's absolutely right, Jim. And what we always say is there's one thing that people in the club are not allowed to do. One thing they're not allowed to do is say they're sorry. So many people were saying when they made a mistake on the key, I'm sorry. Or they weren't copying something, they weren't decoding, sorry. We don't allow anybody to say they're sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. And you'd be surprised how many people were doing that. So we try and get our students comfortable. And, when we started this club 3 years ago, I never knew that anybody was really afraid of getting on the air. But not only is there a fear of using CW on the air, I've learned that there's a fear of even sideband. Like if you said something wrong, somebody might admonish you there. That worries people. So, back in the day when I got my license in 1965, we had 1 year to go from novice to general. We had to get from 5 words a minute to 13 words a minute. And if we didn't do that, we lost our novice license that had to start all over again. So you jumped into the water right away. There was no waiting to test the water with your toes and say, okay, do I want to get on the air or not? So we all got on. But today, I guess in our society, things are different. And to my surprise, there's a lot of anxiety, and it seems to manifest itself with CW. So we structured a club to fight this. And we also made different aspects of the club to include other fun things to do besides CW, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. This is your favorite, Jim.
Yes, getting on the air and QSO protocol. Well, why is getting on the air so important? And we mentioned it a little bit earlier. Once you break that ice, and once you make that first QSO, whether it's assisted or all by yourself, it seems like that's when people really,
this was the final.
wow,
But
nothing
might
mattered.
be.
Even though I didn't send the best,
Started at 7.
it's okay. And then they really start to explode in their learning. Well, we've talked to people who've documented it. We had a guest speaker come, I think it was one of our speakers, but he had even documented that his learning progression went, at a rate like this, but as soon as you get on the air and start learning, it really climbs. And I think it has to do with the fact that, you have that extra added stress, there's distress, and then there's eustress, or there's a good kind of a stress, and being in the military for a long time. And I think a lot of us experience the first time that we were signed off on something, or were given a task to do and trusted to do it. And you have a little extra stress and pressure, and it seems to help things sink in a little bit better as you're doing the QSO protocol. And then, so anyway, that's why it's so important. And you all know that it's important to get people on the air. And as far as how the QSO is set up, we have a particular class that Howard mentioned earlier called Demystifying the QSO. And that's where we demystify the QSO. We bring in people right after they've learned the 40 characters. And the only requirement in that class, and it's not even a hard requirement, but I tell people we prefer it if you already know the characters to start to participate, because we're going to start doing the call sign exchanges, the standard call sign exchanges, and all the parts of the protocol. And in protocol 1, we call the different, I'm not sure if it's called this throughout the community, but protocol 1 would be where we do the first exchange of the RST, QTH, and name. Protocol 2 is the second exchange, where we do the rig, antenna, power, and a little bit about the weather and things like that. So by teaching these things, as soon as they learn the characters, now they know what's coming, they know what they're supposed to send, and it takes, and as we say, we're aiming at having fun and taking away the fear. And this back and forth picture we have here, I put that in there because, as you probably, I'm sure you know, a good CW QSO is a beautiful thing. It's like music, or it's like a perfect dance where each person knows exactly what they're supposed to do and does their step, and then the other person does their step. So that's my way of just saying, I tell my students, it doesn't have to be beautiful. There's good, there's ugly, there's music that's kind of sloppy, and there's music that's really tight. But we work towards tightening things up, and that's what we have. That's what we do in that class. Howard?
Yeah, very good. Next slide, Jim. Okay, head copy. What's it all about? This happens to be my class that I'm actually teaching tonight at 10 o'clock every week. Head copy takes place, hopefully, when you get up to 18 words a minute, because after 18 words a minute, 20 words a minute, it's very hard to write. You're going to get writer's cramp, and you're going to get very tired, and plus you're going to use a heck of a lot of paper. So at that particular point in your CW journey, it's time to learn head copy. So how do you do it? Well, if you look on the internet, you're not going to find anything on how to learn or how to teach head copy. There's no books written about it either. So I've adapted my own personal thoughts how to do it, and it's kind of a cerebral thing. I can't go into all the details here, but I'll tell you that I've come to determine that for me personally, and I can only teach on the basis of what my personal experience is, I find there are 5 pathways to decode in your head. First of all, you have to move the CW from outside of your head into the middle of your head, like the forehead area, and put it on a moving ticker tape, just like we have here on this slide. And that's your repository for holding what you're decoding. If you're just doing instant recognition of words and characters, your CW is outside the head and the ear. That's only the medium to get it in there. Then you have to have a repository for it. And we teach ways to develop those repositories. Some people, they move the repository. Some people just can hold a few on a stationary blackboard. That's okay. Other pathways that I use is I allow the vibration of the CW after 20 words a minute to form a vibration on my chest while I'm decoding. So I feel a rhythm. I'm immersed in a rhythm. And I also will visually, if I feel like it, tear apart the code into dashes and dots visually in my mind and play with it. All of these things going on at the time. Now, the faster you go, these things start to drop off because you're really not using your subconscious mind. I'm talking about the subconscious mind, and then you got to concentrate at high speeds. Unless you're a genius, you really can't do all of this. But these are the white matter pathways that I happened to be lucky enough to develop when I was 13 years old when I started in 1965. Now, can a 50, 60, and a 70-year-old person do that? Well, some can, some can't. Do we insist that you have to head copy? No. You can do CW at 15 words a minute and have a lot of fun on the bands. But if you want to try that, this is what we try and teach. And it's a very cerebral class, and we have a lot of fun. It's very different. Okay, Jim.
All right, increasing speed. Is it necessary, and how do you do it? Well, in short, the answer is no, it's not necessary. But what we tell our students is that, it just depends on what your goal is. We want you to come into the club, and we don't want you to feel pressured to get that you think you have to get really fast. But what we tell people is that you can have great QSOs at 10 words a minute. You can have great QSOs at 18 words a minute, and you can have great QSOs at 24 words a minute. It's up to you as how much time you want to put in and how much practice you want to do to get where you want to be. As
Well,
far
that's
as how, yeah, and as far as how we do it, we're going to hit that a little bit later on another slide, Howard.
What is speed? You could practice on computers and become proficient at 50 words a minute. Well, if you're going to call CQ at 50 words a minute, you're going to be pretty lonely. The only guys that are doing 50 words a minute that I know of are 3 guys on 7018 about 6 o'clock at night on 40 meters. One of them is in the club, and they're between 50 and 55. And other than that, most people are way below that. Sure, you might hear some DX running pileups of 30 to 40 words a minute, but do you need to copy that consistently? No, you just need to get your call sign out so that you can work the gut. There's plenty of people to work in the 20s. Now, what is my speed? I send at 24 words a minute. Now, where did I come up with that number? You're going to say, well, why does he say 24, not 25, not 20? Well, every word per minute above 20 sounds different and really is different. Below 20, it's not that critical. But above 20, it starts to make a difference. At 24 words a minute, I find that I'm still using my subconscious mind. If I want, I can, do my emails, I can text, I can listen to what's going on. I don't have to have my full attention. If someone calls on the phone, I can take a phone call while the radio is still going. You start going up about that, it becomes a real concentration, and to me, it's really tiring. And I haven't really trained up in the 50s because it doesn't have a value to me. So, speed is relevant. If you want to do contests, okay. But if you don't, it's fine. So everything with speed is a personal decision. Okay, so in the rest of our presentation here, we're going to go over a few areas: overstudy, errors, plateauing, which is very important, sending, and a very military term from Jim, expectation management. So go ahead, Jim, overstudy for you.
One of the things that, and Howard mentioned it earlier, I think that one saying says it all. We're not here to you're not here to train to be a professional student. I mean, if you are, you are. I mean, if you join the club and you want to be the best G4FON operator there is in the world, that's fine. That's what makes you happy. But everyone else, majority of people in our club aren't that way. And we want to make sure that they don't accidentally kind of go that way, thinking that they need perfection before that they can get on the air. So we overstudy can lead to burnout, and it can and people just get tired. In fact, we were just talking about this with one of our students the other day. Howard, remember, one of our students was saying that they had pushed so hard that they got on the air and they just couldn't recognize anything anymore. So that's an example of really just kind of pushing yourself too hard. So that is overstudy.
You're absolutely right, and I remember that, Jim. And being a professional student, well, what is it when it comes to CW? Look, we have phones that do everything. We have computers, iPads, you name it. We're a very instantaneously gratified technological society now, and this is translated where people feel that they have to use every single app and everything they can find on a computer and learn CW through a computer. Well, when they get on the air, they find that they can't copy because people don't send like computers on the air. You hear a fist. So we have now classes that are dedicated to teach people how to listen to fists, and we have recordings of things from back in the day where everybody was sending with banana boat swings on bugs, with chirps from AC hums in their boat anchors and stuff like that. And so we play these things so people can get to hear what it's really like to be on the air, because listening to G4FON is great, but it's not going to let you decode anything when you get on the air. And people think with the Farnsworth method, where we send at a character speed of 20 words a minute, going at 5 words a minute speed, that people are going to be sending Farnsworth on the air. Well, they don't. So then there's a big letdown. So we really now tell people that enough with the study after 3 or 4 months, just get on the air. That's what I'm telling everybody now. Just get on the air, and because you keep studying, get all these plateaus and this and that. CW wasn't meant when it was developed years ago and when it was at its peak in World War II, where we have all these studies and all this literature that was written about it on how to train people. They didn't have time to get people to learn CW for a year or 2 or 3 years. The war would have been over. So they had to crank out these people in a month. And I believe that's the same philosophy that has to be done. But this is a shock to people when they hear it. But look, that's what we do. Do people listen? Some do, some don't. Does it matter if they listen? Do we get upset? No. You're here to have fun, and you do what you want to do.
Well, when I teach my beginning students who are just learning the characters, I just wanted to share what I find is the most of the problems they run into. And really, it's not nothing major. It's confusing opposite characters, KR, P and X, Y and L, things that you see here. Confusing similar characters just because they're close, an S and an H, a 6 and a B, and so on. And what I tell the students is, I think it's good when they start confusing a K and an R. I say, hey, that's great. And they say, what are you talking about? Why is that great? And I said, because you've put two things together. Your mind has put two things together that are the same. Then they say, well, how are they the same? I said, well, they're the same because they're opposite. They're exactly opposite. So your mind is starting to categorize these things. So, and they work through this. Not everyone has this trouble, but I see it, and they work through it quickly. And then if students, back to the similar characters, the S and the H, the 6 and the B, and things like that, a lot of times, especially for our older club members and me included, because I was in the military listening to jet engines for so many years, that I've lost a lot of my higher hearing tone. So a lot of times just changing that tone, lowering the tone will help people differentiate between these characters. Howard?
Yeah, that's very good, Jim. I couldn't add any more to that. Okay, plateaus. We always hear that people are reaching plateaus, 11, 15, 18. They're in the teens, these plateaus. They just can't get by it. They get stuck. So what do? We have something we coined called periodicity training. Now, what is periodicity? Athletes, you see them, take a baseball player. When he's coming up to bat, he's got 2 bats he's swinging, and then he drops 1 bat, and of course he goes up and he feels that now he can get around the ball quicker because he's using less weight. Same thing when people are on a treadmill. They'll speed up their treadmill to a very fast speed, then come all the way down, then come all the way back. This is called periodicity. And we do that. So how do you break someone off this plateau? Well, you got to push them past it. And even if they don't copy much, you're pushing them past the point where they got stuck. Then we bring them back down below where they got stuck, and we mix them up and try and get through this. But like I said before, unless you get on the air, you'll get stuck at these plateaus. But can we give you a little injection and get you cured? Yeah. But, to avoid these things, you have to be operating.
Mhm.
All right, and then also back with my basic students, some of the things we see where people have a little bit of challenge is inconsistency in their sending. Maybe when they're sending a J, all the DAWs aren't consistent, which starts to make them sound like maybe one of the DAWs is a DIT. We make sure that they hold those DAWs out as long as they're supposed to and don't cut them short. Spacing, of course, between words and between characters is something that we work on with our students. Sometimes we have students that are having trouble, and I had a student the other day, he could not send the number 4 to save his life. And I said, hey, accentuate the da whenever you get to the end of that 4. And he did it, and it worked. And I said, you know, and we say, you know, you can always accentuate the da, but you can never accentuate a dit, because that doesn't work. But sometimes a little accentuation and a little style like that helps you get through a tough character.
Well,
And then ultimately, it's all about relaxing, because if any motorcycle riders out there, if you're tense and nervous while you're riding a bike and your arms are tight, everything translates from that wheel right up into your arms, and from your arms right back down into that front wheel. And the same thing when you're on a paddle or a key. If you're tense, you're not going to be able to send well, and you're not going to be able to copy well. So, well, we try to make everything fun. We try to relax people in the beginning of classes, and we just try to keep everything nice and fun all throughout.
Well, that's absolutely true, Jim. And you know, to go back to the accentuating the dashes, you know, beginners tend to have choppy dashes. The dots, like Jim said, you can't really make a mistake on. But you know, if you have a letter like Y, da 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 da, at the end, they would maybe make that last dash too short. So we tell them to go da 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 da. No one ever is going to tell you that you're sending your dashes too long, because when you accentuate those endings and you kind of roll into those accentuated dashes, like an R, did da dit, instead of da da dit, you know, which is like maybe too short for someone to understand, your sending will be able to be copied better. And of course, as you get better in CW, you can get off that and shorten it up a little bit. But a little bit of an accent or a fist is very helpful when you're sending in the beginning. Okay, Jim, this is your baby here.
Okay, yeah, this is something big we would hit in the military a lot, and that's expectation management. Of course, managing your expectations. And the biggest thing, I've had to meet with students on occasion, and I've never met it with a student yet who who wanted to meet, who thought that they weren't progressing fast enough. And it's always come down to expectation management. They just thought that they should be further along than they were, and they were fine. They were right where they were supposed to be. They're still learning the first 20 characters, but they thought that they should know them better, that they should be moving along faster. So we just remind our students, and it doesn't happen overnight. You got to put in the time, you got to put in the work, be patient with yourself. We talked a little bit earlier about not over practicing, so we want to avoid burnout. And then we have to remember that CW is a language, and you don't learn a language overnight. My dad made me take Spanish from the 7th grade all the way through the 12th grade, and I didn't want to do it. He said, "You'd thank me one day." Well, I'm thanking him now. He's right, but it took me 6 years to get to where I was in Spanish. So we just want to let people know that, yeah, you're going to get there. It's not going to happen overnight, but slow and steady wins the race, and you're going to have fun along the way. And a lot of things, another thing I like to tell my students is enjoy yourself as you're learning. You're only going to learn CW once. Enjoy the process, and enjoy the people you're learning with, and have fun, and enjoy the moment.
Well, I like what your dad told you. Very good words about Spanish. So, CW is an oral language. What do we mean by that? Well, it's something that's actually through the ears, and it's like a spoken language. It's just like learning Spanish. So, and some people come with expectations that they figure, after about 3 months of study, they should be already, knowing CW proficiently already. But look, if you were taking Spanish in high school, in 3 months, would you be able to converse with people? No. So these things take time. But on the other hand, since it's an oral language, just like any other language that you take in, you have to speak it, because if you don't speak it, you'll lose it. And that's why we are encouraging QSOs. I always tell the story about my kids. So we had 5 kids here. They all took Spanish, right? They all got A's and B's in Spanish. But today, in their 20s and 30s, they can't speak a word because they never used it. It was book learning, right? So the same thing, you're going to spend all this time, like I said before, learning on a computer with G4FON or CW Player or Rough C or whatever, how to learn CW, and never got on the air. it's just never going to be used, and you'll be lacking in your learning curve. So that's what we mean by the facets of expectation. Okay, well, we're going to try and play this now. If it doesn't work, we have a backup. We've
We
had
do.
trouble playing our videos through PowerPoints. But anyhow, having said all of that, this is what's going to happen to our students if they don't pay attention to the teachers, if they don't pay attention.
Short wave, take it down, quick. What's it say? Ah, shut up. What'd that mean? You too?
Well, we don't hit that hard, okay? But it could happen. Anyhow, I love that video because I love the Three Stooges. Every time I see that, it's fun. And I want you to know that the CW in that is real CW. It's just random letters. And it's really with a perfect straight key fist with some of that accentuation that I was telling you about. I really enjoy that. Okay, so that's basically the presentation on how to learn CW. We thought we would jazz it up a little bit tonight and show you some things that, you know, we have some presentations that we would have done live, and some of these things we would have liked to show people, but you know, with the lockdowns, everything is virtual. So anyhow, what are we going to show you here? Last year, the club was fortunate enough to actually acquire a SparkGap transmitter. Now, this is not exactly a commercially built transmitter, but there are parts in this from real SparkGap transmitters. And I want to show you my first foray with it. This is in the basement of W2KRM's house, who sold it to us, and I'm trying it out for the first time. Here we go, starting George Flanagan's SparkGap machine. I like the way this thing sounds, the way it's heating up. So here we go. I'll send a CQ. Sign WB2UZE. I certainly wouldn't put my finger over there, but it's really cool. Well, you know, if you heard the buzzing there, that was actually the RF from that thing was overloading the cell phone. You know, so that's what you heard. So that's our SparkGap machine. Too bad we can't show it this year at Henry University. What's the next one? Okay, so we have another thing here. You know, CW back in the day could be sent with a sounder, you know, along telegraph wires. And I found this sounder in the basement of a Silent Keys house, and it was just peeking up at me, and we were able to get it. I have it right here, ready to go, but I thought that we would send it to you on the video first, and then I'll do something over here. So this is a real 1890s telegraph sounder from the telegraph days. Hello, everyone out there in TV land. This is Howard WB2UZE, and I'm in my shack here where we have mostly modern equipment and my dog Chomper on my lap. But I'm here to demonstrate today a Morse code sounder that's from the late 1800s. It's something that I found in a basement of an old ham shack, and there was a lot of stuff down there, and this was just peeking out at us. We were lucky to find it, and it's in perfect condition. Most hams are really not able to understand CW with clicking. They're all used to tones. But some of us can, and I'm here to demonstrate how it sounds. I'm using a JT38 World War II vintage key, and here's the sounder. So let's send a CQ. That's CQ. LCQ, and then from W2LCW. Again. Can even send with my dog licking my hand. There we go. So, you know, back in the day, they used American Morse code for those sounders, which had more dots in it, which is a little bit more conducive to hearing it. And if you really send very fast CW with the international code we use now, you really can't decode it. But slow like that, you could. So this, I don't know if you can hear it here, but here it is again. And they put it in a box to project the sound. So that's what these things sounded. What do we got next, Jim? Okay, this is the Instructograph. Now, what were these? Some of you guys, if you took your FCC, your general exam back in the 60s, you might remember that at the FCC office, this is how you took your test. And we were fortunate to be given one of these Instructographs. That's the name of it. They're made in the 1930s. They're tape-driven CW machines. And we had some friend of mine actually restore this thing, and he had to fashion, you know, rubber parts because a lot of the things in there were just rotten away. And he got this thing working. How? I don't know. But listen to this. Okay, we'll stop that so we don't run out of time. So that's an example of the Instructograph. We thought we'd spend a few moments and show some of the keys that we have here. Jim, you want to go ahead and show everybody some of the keys? Jim, I think we lost your audio. You're muted. Yeah, got unmute.
Excuse me. Yeah, the keys that I was going to show you, I'm having with my, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to hold them up, Howard, since I'm running the slideshow and I can't turn my background off. But my
Okay.
keys was the Bengali blade and the Vibroplex bug are the two keys I use the most.
All right, well, I'll just show a couple that I have ready here. Here is the famous J38. Many of them were made by the Lionel company, the same company that made trains for us when we were younger. And millions of these keys were put out. You can still find them at Hamfest for about $70. They're very good keys. This is a very expensive Bengali HST, which is a single lever paddle instead of the two levers that are coming out single. It's very smooth for higher speed CW using a keyer. And most people know bugs. Since Jim can't show you his, this is my original bug that I got when I was a kid. I think I had this when I was 15 years old, and I used this until I graduated from college because I never had enough money to buy a keyer. Okay, so let's continue. So a little bit about the club, okay?
All right. Well, thank you, Carolyn, for getting that video, for finding that and sharing that with us and then playing that. I know I'm interested in getting into CW. I've talked to a few of you about it. It's just, I guess, setting aside the time to learn and practice and everything like that. But, I don't know, has anybody here gotten into CW yet? Started learning it? Already know it? Okay, a few hands. Anybody on Zoom still with us who, I know Carolyn, of course, Pat Lane. Okay, a few hands on there.
Cliff,
So,
aren't you doing some CW?
who are you talking to, Joe?
Cliff Wentworth, K4 WNT. Joe Plunk said it looks like he's doing some.
Yeah, there are a
Okay.
few in the.
All right, and Carolyn, you joined Long Island CW Club, correct?
I just did because I was interested in the head copy class, but I learned online at lcwe.com. So there, like he said, there are a number of different apps, but I think one of the good things about the Long Island Club is you can join for a year for about $30, or you can make yourself a lifetime member, but then you have a whole pool of other students you can practice with. So you can get on the air without having to like go into a competition, and practice with people that are at your own level. And I think that's probably a good way to go.
You were doing good at CW at field day.
Oh, thank you, Pat.
Yeah, I was impressed.
I was impressed with you too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you are interested in CW, and really this goes for anything digital, or anything else. But field day and other activities like that are great opportunities to not only see how it's done, but, if you have been working on it, like Carolyn, when Pat went home to get some rest, she stepped in the early morning hours Sunday to get, some CW contacts. And so anything like that, it's always good if you work on it between now and then and you feel pretty good. Maybe consider trying to jump in for a little bit next field day to show everybody how well you've done. So, but any questions about that? We got a couple of them.
Carolyn, Ken, K4DIT does some CW.
All right, so Tom, AC5MR reminded me that ARRL, the information is on the website, but if you're interested in practicing CW, they actually, they send out copy at different words per minute for you to be able to practice copying. So ARRL, they'll broadcast it so that way you can practice copying at different words per minute. Thank you for that reminder. And it's also on different HF bands. Anybody else have any questions, comments? Tricks? Anybody on Zoom with any questions, comments, tips?
I use CW for Parks on the Air. It's a very simple exchange, basically just call sign and signal strength. And with the bands the way they are, you could get parks in different parts of the country that you weren't able to on phone. So it's an incentive, and you can do it with about 7 to 10 words a minute and be very successful with it.
All right, well, thank you for sharing that. For anybody who's gotten into it, whether they've been into CW for a long time or whether they've recently learned it, if someone was interested in starting to learn CW, what's maybe an expected cost between the keyers and the radio? What are they looking at probably for an initial cost to get into it? Ballpark. Anybody?
Well, he said you can buy a $75 key. You can also buy 3D printed keys. And they're maybe $35, $40. Some of the more exotic keys are up in the hundreds, $200 to $500.
And from time to time, we have keys and that equipment in our consignment items that we sell. So that's worth keeping an eye on as well. So.
You can build your own too. You can build your own too.
Or you can build your own.
It's a good project.
Yeah, there are a handful of kits out there for code oscillators and things like that. So certainly plenty of options.
You can also practice with the side tone on your rig, your HF rig, without transmitting. Just turn the transmit off, and that's a good way to practice.
All right. Well, I forgot to announce earlier, VE testing did happen tonight. We had two who earned, two who passed their exams. One, we had a technician who earned his exam, and then there was another who passed the extra license. So congratulations to the two of those who took that. And then also, I heard during the break that someone asked a question about PayPal. We are working on that. So if you see something pop up on the website, don't worry about clicking on it yet. It's not live yet. But we are slowly making progress on getting PayPal as an option. So that way you can start paying your dues online versus only a cash or check. So it has certainly been a work in progress, and I appreciate Jim and Mike, our treasurer and director of publications, for working on trying to get that stuff set up. But it's a work in progress, and we'll get, when we get to a point where we can accept that, we will let you know. So in the meantime, don't assume that that's going to be ready to go right now if you pay your dues. So please continue to mail it in or come to meetings and pay in person. But it is a work in progress. So before we go, does anybody else in person have anything, questions, announcements? Does anybody on Zoom have anything? All right. Well, if there is, unless there is an objection at 8:40, we will stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Works for me. See you later.
All right. Night all.
Take care.
All right, all drive home safe.